Hello and welcome to the Crofton Warrior podcast. I'm your host Jack here with a very special episode. Today I'm having a conversation with two of our administrators, our principal Mr. Ostermeyer and our superintendent Mr. Look. Now we're going to talk about a variety of different things like policy, rules, opinions, just some personal stuff to get to know everybody. I would like to remind everybody to keep an open mind during these interviews. This is an opportunity to learn about our school and the people running it. Maybe this is for administrators to learn about the students or the students to learn about the administrators. Both can happen here. Now, I've got a variety of questions from students, teachers, even a couple parents, and this is going to be good. We're keeping it respectful. We're all going to learn. It's going to be incredible. So, without further ado, Mr. Look, welcome to the Crofton Warrior podcast.
Well, Jack, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate the invite and looking forward to it.
So, let's begin with just a couple easygoing. How did you get here? How did you come show up at Crofton?
Well, that's a long story. But as most of you know, I'm originally from Kansas. Grew up there, was there for many years. Actually was in education there as a teacher, then a principal for 17 years. Had an opportunity to take on a superintendent role, and just so happened it was in Crofton, and the rest is history. So that's why we're here.
So where did you go to school?
In Kansas, Stockton, Kansas, small town in northwest Kansas.
That's where you grew up?
That's where I grew up, yep.
Wow.
Just south of Kearney.
How has Crofton life been treating you? You've been here for...
This is year six. Start of year six. It's been great, We've met a lot of people and really enjoy the community. Staff and students are great. It's been a real positive experience overall.
That's wonderful to hear. So, simple questions. Grant's going to get mad at me if I don't ask this one. Mm-hmm. What's your handicap for golf?
Ooh, depends on the day. It went up a little bit last week, but, it's not too bad. I won't give Grant a number. He'll have to come play.
He'll have to play with you. Okay, so a lot of people might not know this, but what is the difference between a principal and a superintendent? Because some people just see people in some sort of power in the school and just think it's the same thing. So what would you say is the main difference?
Sure. Your principal's running more of the day-to-day within the high school, or I should say 712 building. They're overseeing the teachers directly, students with discipline, items like that, answering any questions that pertain directly to those types of items within the school. Superintendent, my main job is to uphold the policy that the Board of Education sets, work with them. I am responsible for creating the budget, working through that throughout the school year, making sure we're doing good financially. And then, just like I said, a lot of overseeing the district as a whole, facilities, buildings, things like that. And then I'm also assisting with any other area that needs help.
Anything that works out with. That makes a lot of sense. So how has it been working with Mr. O? What do you guys do together? What are things that you guys do more separately? Are there more things that you enjoy just helping out with Mr. O? What are some situations like that? Sure,
yeah. There's a lot of things we do together. I talk a lot about my admin team, or our admin team, which is not just me. It's me, Mr. O, Mr. Raggi at the elementary, and then Miss Kramer as athletic director. That's what makes up our admin team. And so we work together to make sure everything's covered one way or another, whether that's events, staff in-service days, hiring staff, holding everybody accountable, those types of items. Specifically to Mr. O and myself up here at the high school, he's your primary person to talk to. We talked about chain of command. He's the primary person to talk to when there's an issue or anything that comes up. And then if it needs to be addressed further, or he has questions or needs a helping hand, that's where I step in. And we work together through situations. Or there's days when he has to be gone, whether he's got a professional development opportunity or a ball game or something like that he needs to be at, then I can help him out when he's gone. So, like I said, a lot of a team effort. You'll see that in a smaller district. You have to do that to be successful.
Oh yeah, of course. So more on how the school works and stuff like that. A lot of people are wondering about our block scheduling and why we have block scheduling as opposed to periods. So what would you have to say about that? Is that more of a question on your side, or is that just what it is?
Well, so how that works is it starts with with what the principal and the counselor present, what's going to work best with them, with the teachers, with what we have available with staffing as well. And so they create that. Now, if they're wanting to look at a change, I would be there to answer questions or sound off if there's anything we need to look at. But the final decision would come down as a group effort if we were to change anything. I've had experience on both sides. I've taught in block. I've taught in a 7 or 8 period day. Some of the advantages that I see is that you actually get probably more classes because you get 4 a semester. Mm-hmm. Most places that go at high school level anyways, that go with a regular bell schedule, they'll go a 7 period day. So you're actually getting 1 more class. I was a former shop teacher, industrial
Really?
tech. Yeah, so an hour and a half block was awesome. We had a woodworking project or another type of project, you got a lot done. Whereas if you were in a 40 to 50 minute period day, you'd start and you'd be cleaning up in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And so those are the advantages I see. There can be disadvantages as well. Sometimes it limits our scheduling with what students can take. I think they've done some things to try to offset that, but it could cause issues with that. And then sometimes getting enough classes with your staff to cover everything can be difficult as well.
Yeah. So are there different systems in place for which class ends up in which block? Like, for me, journalism is normally in 4th block, but I think that last year it was 3rd block one of the semesters. Is there some sort of system in place for how that works, or what determines where classes are?
Yeah, so Mr. O and Mrs. Rossman, they'll work together on a schedule, and it's based off of what's available. So, for example, we know that our new FFA ag teacher is not going to be here till second semester.
Yeah.
So that put a kink in things first semester. So they had to scramble and maneuver some things around. Otherwise, it's probably going to be pretty similar. But those are the types of things they have to look at to make sure that they're still able to offer the opportunities for all the students to take the classes that you're wanting to take. Doesn't always work out the way you want it, but they do their best. So it's a balancing act. I've made many schedules over the year too, and it's difficult.
I'm sure it's very hard to do. To get everything in one cohesive bit.
Definitely.
So our school year seems, a lot of people have been talking about this. Our school year started a little bit earlier than it normally has, and it looks like it's getting out a little bit later than it has. But, there's different things. I think Christmas break is a little bit longer and different early outs here and there. But how does that get determined? Is that on your side? Is that more school board? Where does that?
So there's multiple items that play into that. The first one is that our teachers are contracted for 185 days. And so we have to build a schedule where teachers are part of that for 185 days. The second part of that is we're required by the state to meet so many hours. As seniors and all students, you have to meet a number of hours or you would have to go longer at the end of the year. So we build a schedule around that with some snow days built in there.
Yeah, just in case.
You've seen the last 2 years. We've had a lot of snow days, and we haven't had to make anything up. We've had to tweak the schedule a little bit, with our early outs that we extended. But yeah, a lot goes into that as far as looking exactly how it starts and ends. So this year, we always start the week after fair, and just the way that it fell is a little early. You already mentioned Christmas break. We have a full 2-week Christmas break.
That'll be nice.
So that does add to it. It'll be nice then, but at the end of the year, it makes it a little bit longer because we got to make up those days.
Yeah.
And we've got some days in between there. We've kind of planned for state. We've had the Friday off for cross country for years.
Oh yeah.
The Friday for state basketball week. We added the Friday of state wrestling a couple years ago. Just because we've had a lot of people going down there and missing. So instead of having a school day to make up, we've made it so that opportunity is there for you as students and our staff to go down and watch those activities. So that's extended a little bit. We've talked about, is there ways to tweak that or change that, and we're always looking for ways because it does seem to be getting a little bit longer than usual this year for sure.
Yeah, that's at least what I've seen, but seeing that it all has some sort of a system.
Yep.
Is just a really important thing to see for everybody.
Absolutely, and the state ties us down with the hours. That's the big one.
Yeah.
That's the
a
one that
big
we
part.
really have to follow.
So, with your time here at Crofton, would you say Crofton is just an exemplary school from what you've seen? Just very good?
I would say that Crofton does a great job. Definitely exemplary. comparing it to where I've been before, especially, I was in Kansas and we had a great school system there. But I would say that it's a step up as far as the accountability and the what we require of students to do to succeed, just held to higher standards is what I'd say. And I see that just within the classrooms that I go to, watching my own son transition from Kansas to Nebraska, that was a pretty big step because it's different. I think the expectations and standards across the state here are a little bit higher than they are where I was at before. Not that they were bad schools by any means, but definitely a step up. And our school does a great job. You see it both academically and athletically, and those go hand in hand.
Yeah, we've got many activities going to the state competitions and doing well. Would you say that, at least in your time, are we doing better at different things? Are we falling down in some sort of situations?
That's hard to say overall. Overall, I would say we are exemplary. You used that word before, I'll use it again, but we're exceeding what a lot of other schools are doing. The district's not just good at certain events, not just, girls basketball is a perfect example. We're not just good at girls basketball. Football's been successful. Cross country's been successful. FFA's been successful. One Act been successful. Speech, from your own experience.
I do.
Track, the list goes on and on. And if when one area is successful, it kind of helps bring everybody up, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. That could always change in a heartbeat, but I think our coaches, our students, everybody does such a good job of holding each other accountable that I think it's going to continue down the track that it's on right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So with everything changing, with going up, moving up, there have been a lot more students coming in. We've got, I think, about 30 fourth graders in the school.
Correct.
Right now, and a lot of other classes that are in the upper 20s and stuff like that. With junior high, they all teach all of their core classes all in one big group. What's that going to look like in the future, down the road, in the long term? What's that going to look like with those big classes coming in?
That's an item that we've talked about. We've got to start planning ahead for. Is it? I don't know the answer right now, but are we going to have to split those up? Are we going to have to do something with a modified block within the junior high? Is it a modified block within the high school? Is it a whole different schedule for everybody? Those are things we have to discuss and kind of see what may or may not work.
Yeah, big talking point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that kind of flows into, as we've talked bonds. We've had a couple bonds that we've ran, a couple bonds that failed, the last two. And we've got a group, an advisory group that was actually put together this last spring, early summer, that's been meeting over the summer, trying to get a solution in mind that will help address at least the elementary side of things. Just to get more space, get more classrooms, so that if we need to split some classes, we would have that option. Because right now, even if we wanted to split them, we wouldn't have that option. We just don't have the classroom space. So that's a work in progress. There's actually going to be some information going out on that in the near future. Just to keep everybody informed that there is a process and a group made up of just a wide group of people in the community, community members, farmers, education people, so on and so forth. So yeah, a lot to look at and address over the near future.
Oh yeah. And now we're just back to the small questions. I think this might be the last one for you. Okay. I got from Miss Hanson. She just has to know. She asked what your favorite book is.
My favorite book.
Most recent book you've read.
Most recent, probably John Gordon. I've got a few new ones sitting on my shelf I haven't touched yet, but probably The Power of Positive Leadership. That's the last one I read. I had to make sure I got the wording right.
Are you a big reader guy? You said you're a podcast guy.
I am a podcast guy. I listen to more podcasts than I read now. I like to read. It's just finding the time. It's easier for me to throw a podcast in if I'm going down the road or in my office or trying to get a workout in or something like that. I'll throw a podcast on. But yeah, really enjoy the podcast. Love to read. Just got to make the time to do it.
I don't want to be that guy. But do you listen to our podcast?
I have listened to your podcast.
Hey!
I'm excited I got the invite. Like I said, I've been waiting for a year, so.
Well, we appreciate having you on.
I'm kidding. I've enjoyed it. Anytime. If you guys ever want to talk anything with school or anything else, more than happy.
Well, I'm sure once this one comes out, we'll have a lot of a lot more questions for you if
Perfect.
you're willing to answer them.
Absolutely. I'm always willing to answer, and if I don't know the answer, I can probably find someone who does.
Well, alrighty. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Jack. Appreciate it, and go Warriors.
Yeah, go Warriors. Much appreciated. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mr. Ostermeyer. I'm the principal at Crofton High School here in Crofton, Nebraska.
Yeah, alrighty. Thank you very much for doing this podcast, by the way.
No problem. Thanks for
I
having
really
me.
appreciate it. So, first off, I've got a couple questions from like everyone around. I've just been asking people,
Good.
hey, if you could ask Mr. O or Mr. Look any questions, what would you wonder about?
Gotcha.
So, this is coming from me. This is coming from students, teachers. My parents had a couple questions. So,
Perfect.
alrighty. So, just to begin, how did you end up here at Crofton?
Kind of a long story, but I'll make it quick. Mr. Strom, who was the principal before me here, I knew he was moving to a different job in South Sioux, so I happened to see him at a conference activity since I was the AD and assistant principal over at Pierce. I actually saw him at the conference quiz bowl that Pierce was hosting, and I asked him, I said, hey, how's your family taking moving to a different community? And he goes, well, why are you asking that for? I go, well, because I have a neuro school out in the Panhandle that wants me to come out and interview for a job out there. And that's when he told me, well, why don't you apply for my job up in Crofton? And I said, well, I didn't know because I knew that with his daughter and him not getting a superintendent job here, there might be some hard feelings. And I've been a friend of his, so I was like, I wasn't even going to test the waters. He said, hey, why don't you just send me your stuff so I can look at it? I said, okay, no problem. The next day I get a call from Mr. Dahl and says, hey, your interview is next week. I'm like, interview? I didn't even apply because Strom had turned my stuff in for me. And then I ended up getting an interview here, and I ended up taking a job here, and that's pretty much how I got here.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
It's all about who you know. That's what I've been
Sometimes.
told. So that was how many years ago? How many years have you been
10
here?
years now. Been a
10
decade.
years?
Yes, been a decade already.
Oof, that'll do it. So within that 10 years, what success have you seen, and what are we working on? Where are we going towards?
Well, the biggest thing is when I first got here, the limited technology that was here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we had 2 computer labs, one which was the ag room. You know, that used to be Mr. Allen's room, a computer lab. Then we actually had the other computer lab. And then I think there might have been 5 or 6 laptops that could go out, but there was a very limited amount of technology students were able to get their hands on. Since that time, you know, my 3rd year we started our one-to-one program, so this is our 7th year of one-to-one, and that's the biggest thing I've seen change is the technology that students are able to use and utilize and understand before they get to college, where you're expected to be able to do online classes and everything else, and if that's not in your hand in high school, it's really a disadvantage to you know, our students.
I've just seen so much more technology, even as I've been in high school.
Correct.
Like, I remember when my oldest sister Quinn was first in here, and that was like more of a new thing, just the iPads.
Yep.
And it was just a big, wow, what if? Where can this go? What's this going to happen? And to see it blossom into what we have now is just so impressive and so cool.
Agree.
Within that and within our many activities that are doing very well, what would you say makes Crofton a really good school? What would you say makes it?
What makes Crofton?
Yeah, what makes Crofton Crofton?
Yeah. In my opinion, is the community, the families we have here. You know, we're blessed to be in a place where family still is a priority for our community. No matter if kids are in 2-parent families still, you know, in blended families or in single-parent families, family is still a main aspect of what we see here in Crofton. And then religion. I tell everybody I'm very blessed to be part of a school that is very much a public parochial school where most of the kids in our school come from some kind of a religious background. So those values and those ethics that are put into any kind of religious setting show in our school, so we don't have some of the problems that other schools have.
That's an incredible answer. That really is. So within all of our activities and within all of our academics, I mean, I know you're a football coach and a track coach. What amount of that, I don't want to say glory, but like, what amount of credit for those accomplishments are on partially your shoulders as the principal? I mean, leading in some sort of capacity, but what amount would you take from that, from all of those successes?
Gotcha. It's really not about me. Our coaches, I've always said one of the best things about being a principal at Crofton is my coaches and sponsors are very serious about what they do, and they're very dedicated, and they're very passionate, and that passion bleeds through. But the worst part of working out at Crofton is they're very passionate, and their passion bleeds through because everybody wants every kid out for their stuff, and then they're always fighting over the same kids because we don't have as many kids, so it's getting kids to be involved. So we just have very passionate coaches and sponsors and educators that they want kids to succeed, and they want to do things well, and they want to do things the Warrior way. And I think trying to breed the Warrior way, which we started a long time ago at the high school, and we've talked about it, but we haven't focused on it as much as we were going to try to this year, a little more. And the elementary is doing a big job of doing some of that too, and just understanding that the Warrior way is doing their things the right way, and if you do things the right way, good outcomes happen.
Yeah. How do you, as a coach of those things, I know, very, very passionate about it. I've seen you coach pole vault. It's very important. How do you balance being a coach like that and also being principal on both an individual level for you and then also with like relationships with students? How do you balance that sort of thing?
Gotcha. I think sometimes that is a tough balance. I think non-football players see me as a football coach and think all I care about is football. So I really try to bridge the gap by making sure I make it to other activities and go and watch other kids doing other things so they realize I'm not just a football coach. Yes, football was one of my passions, one of the things I did for many years, and I still very am passionate about it. But between the whistles or between the bells at school, I'm the principal. I try not to do a lot of football stuff. Most of my planning for football practice come outside of the school day. Either after practice gets over, I'll sit down and do some stuff right away so it's ready to go. Over my lunch break, I'll do a few things while I'm eating lunch. That way I'm not doing coaching things during principal time. I think if people walk in my office, they'll see that I don't have a bunch of football film going on during the day. If it's before or after school, I might have football going on, but I try to keep that balance where from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock, I'm the principal. I can't be worrying about what's going on the football field, what's going on there, especially in track too. And track gets to be really hard because track meets are during the day. Yeah. So I can't be here on track days, which I thank Mr. Look for helping out with those days and making sure he's around and making sure he's making sure things are going on well. But the other thing is we have good kids and good students and good teachers. So it's okay if I'm not necessarily in the building because they still do what's expected, going back to the Warrior way, doing the right thing and having good outcomes come.
To take a completely different leap over to a different thing, from what you've seen being here, what do you think makes a good teacher? I mean, not just on paper, but just from what you've seen in the real world.
They have to be able to relate to kids. If a teacher can't build a relationship with a student, it's going to be hard for them then to get that student to work to their full potential. Mm-hmm. I've told teachers all the time, kids don't care what you know till they know you care. So if they don't know you care, then they're not going to be willing to run through walls for you, or I say that as a coach, but they're not going to be willing to go the extra mile to do these extra credit problems, to do the things to get their grade where it needs to be and to reach their full potential. So building those relationships, I mean, if you can build a relationship with a kid, you can have a student who maybe in some classes that isn't doing as well as they could, but in your class they could be flourishing because you have that relationship. You were able to get them and reach them where they're at, and then get them to where they need to be.
Yeah, that's a very important part. I've seen that in a lot of our teachers, is just that ability to make a connection with the students. And, that's just been very, very important, as I've noticed through my short time. So now we've gotten to the part, these are the hot issues.
The hot topics,
hot topics. And you can about imagine what students are talking about.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So explain the benefits of a dress code.
Okay. The biggest thing with dress code is our society and the media today seem to have no filter. And in the real world, there needs to be filter. Modesty is a virtue that I think has surpassed some generations here lately. And it's okay to be modest. I say all the time. For example, I've had to bring girls in my office because they don't understand the problem with maybe showing too much skin or wearing things too tight. And I tell them, I say, when you're watching TV, how many commercials do you see for a ordinary Chevy pickup? Oh yeah, I see a ton of them, all over the place. Like, yeah. That Chevy pickup, people want to try buy it, or a Ford or a Dodge, whatever pickup it is for a pickup, right? And they have to advertise to get you to buy their brand of all those, right? How many commercials have you ever seen for a Ferrari on TV?
None.
They don't have to advertise. So do you want to be a Ferrari or do you want to be a pickup? A Ferrari, it doesn't need any advertising. It is what it is. So I look at it that way. But if you want to present yourself in a modest fashion, in a respectful fashion, then you'll be respected like a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. That's where I see it.
So would you say that the school is kind of the entity that has to be enforcing that? I mean, I know that you're the one here that's kind of put into the position that you have to be the one enforcing it, right? So would you say that in a way would benefit the educational area, or just make so Crofton would be more of a respected body? What sort of purpose would that have behind it?
To me, it's all about the respect for each other and respect for ourselves. If you dress, and the other thing is, if you dress for success, most people who dress for success are more successful. You don't see too many people that are successful dressing in just baggy, everything all over the place. Now, we can have that here. You can have sweatpants here, which some schools only allow sweatpants one day a week. But I'm like, okay, I'm okay with sweatpants. I would like to see students dress up every once in a while. I love it on days when our sports teams dress up and they have those things, or other activities, or, choir and band, they'll dress up for their concert days and everything like that. I mean, those are the days I think that's great. And I think you feel better. I think when you're dressed up, when you do that, when you have a purpose for what you're doing, you feel better, and that makes it comes out in your work, comes out in what you're doing. I know when I get up and actually get ready and do things, I feel better than if I just put on slob clothes and sit around, and just my mood's different. So I think it does one thing. First off, it just shows respect for you, and it shows respect for the rest of the people in here. Also, I think it helps you educational wise. Unfortunately, the human mind, especially especially young male human mind, when girls wear a whole lot of nothing, then their minds start to wander, and it helps it hard to focus on education when you have things all over the place, and going. And so that's why I look at it as let's make this so our focus here is on education. And there's different things. People say, well, why can't they wear hats? Well, that's a respect thing. We let them wear hats at activities now. Because I said, okay, I think things do need to change over time. It used to be back in when I was in school, it used to be like almost a gentleman thing that you always took your hat off when you walked in the building, no matter what. That isn't necessarily the gentleman thing anymore. If you look at most of our ball games, you look at most of the dads, a lot of them have hats on. So that's why I changed okay, we need to keep up with the times a little bit, but I still think there's a modesty that needs to happen during the educational time. Why we're here. And like I said, a lot of it's for respect for yourself, respect for the other people. It's just those things that modesty goes a long way in my book. And I think that's why there is dress codes in place. I know that different schools have different dress codes. I know some schools you only can wear sports shorts on Thursdays and Fridays. You can't wear them. I mean, I think ours is fairly lax in some areas, so, give or take. And it's not like you can't find clothing that meet our dress code. It's not like it's so strict and so out there that it's impossible to find anything that's going to meet our dress code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also, as another hot topic of conversation, the phone policy here in Crofton. I believe it's just not in classrooms is
Correct.
What it is. Yeah.
Pretty much.
What's the thought process behind all of that?
There's a ton of schools going to no phones. And we thought about it, and we've discussed it. I'm on the fence with it. I think we need to teach kids the appropriate times to use phones. I think employers would rather have us educate them how to and when to, and hopefully then that will reciprocate over to when they leave this place, other than just take them away and out of sight, out of mind. And then when they have the freedoms and they aren't used to, hey, wait a minute, during this time I need to make sure I'm working and not being on my phone checking everything. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with, if we're taking away 100%, do I think that more schools are going to be going to this? Yes. Could I see Crofton ever doing this? Possibly. We'd have to go through and go through the studies like some of these other schools have. It has shown some of the schools that have done it recently that test scores have come up. Now we have pretty high test scores already, so I don't know if they would necessarily shoot up as much as some of the other places, but they have showed they've had lower mental health emergencies once they got rid of cell phones in schools. I think a lot of it's because of social media. Social media is one of the worst things. I've read a lot of research over social media with young kids, and it's a leading cause of depression. There's a direct correlation to the amount of time spent on social media to the amount of depression in kids. The more time they're on social media, usually the more depressed kids tend to feel. Because what's social media do? Basically, social media is for what? It's for one, to let you show how great your life is, or make up how great your life is to show everybody how great you are. And then what's that do to the person watching it? It makes them feel bad because they're not where you're at, or they're like, oh man, why can't I have that? It has them feelings of anxiety towards that. Or if somebody's saying how bad their life is and all this stuff, and it gives empathy, well, that's one of the worst things you can do, because then that just feeds, and that's a dopamine that person keeps on going negative to get more and more dopamine. So there's really not a whole lot of positives when it comes to a lot of things that people are posting online. Now, for just for catching up with friends and seeing pictures of friends that you don't see, I think that's a great thing, because that's not a huge thing, but it's all the other crap that's on there as well, and the drama that goes with social media.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, where it's, a lot of schools are switching to it, and it does seem to be some sort of a good thing there. But it is also important to, when people have their phones on them, I'm sure that everybody listening to this can relate. It's difficult if I'm doing homework or something and my phone's just like sitting there, and I could be going on it or I could be getting something done, sort of thing.
Right.
So it is really important to understand the balance that you have to have there, and I think that when it works, when our system of you can't go on your phone in the classroom, but any other time you're fine, I think it's important to teach people that sort of thing, and like your stance on it, I think that's very important for people to see, that it's not always get your phones out of here. It's just like people need to know when and when not. There's a time and a place sort of situation.
Agree.
And then to close out, Miss Hanson wants me to know what's your favorite book or favorite recent book you've read?
Probably my favorite author is John Gordon. Power Positive Leadership, Energy Bus.
I think that's what Mr. Look said.
Probably. John Gordon's one of my favorite authors. I just got his new book. I haven't started yet. I just got it in the mail the other day, The One Truth, which I'm looking forward to reading that. I would say my favorite book, though, if you go back to high school days, my favorite book of all time is To Kill a Mockingbird from high school.
Oh, yeah.
That was my favorite one. But I can remember a lot of them, though, that I like Of Mice and Men was a good one, The Great Gatsby, The Day No Pigs Would Die. Trying to go back to A Christmas Place. Those are all the classics that we read. I wasn't really a fan of, I'll be honest, of Romeo and Juliet and those things. I read them.
Bossman's going to be mad.
I know that those weren't my favorite. I read them, and I watched the movie and all that stuff. But no, I like those old good books with a moral story, like To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, good old book, and I still enjoy going in there and listening to when Mr. Bossman's going over and explaining it again, and things I had forgotten about. And I forgot about that. And, those are probably some of my favorites from high school. I can't remember anything from college, but here lately, like John Gordon's been my go-to guy with different things. Just positivity, trying to keep things positive, and hopefully around here that comes off of me of being positive and wanting to keep this place positive and keep Crofton the way Crofton is.
All right, yeah. thank you very much for this interview, by the way.
Yeah, no
we
problem.
We really appreciate
Anytime.
it.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. That'll close it out.
Perfect.
So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good day.
You do. Perfect timing.
Right before the bell.
Thank you for listening to the Crofton Wire podcast. We really appreciate your continued support, not only the fun stuff that I get to do, but the entire journalism team as a whole. We've got a new video board to start working on. That'll be really fun. Also, podcast back, year 2, baby. You can catch us on Instagram at Crofton Journalism, TikTok at Warrior Journalism, Crofton Warriors on Facebook and Twitter, at Jack Schieffer on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok if you want just me. There's no quote of the day. Quinlan's not in journalism this semester, so I guess we're going to have to go without it. Well, that's kind of a sad way to end the episode. Anywho, bye. Have a good day. Have a great time. You have a good day.